So here's our tuber collection. This Dahlia is a Rossendale Jojo. I know for a fact that we propagated this last year from a cutting, and therefore there will be no mother tuber because we didn't plant a tuber, we planted a cutting. So we're going to have a look at the anatomy, see what's going on with these tubers and what it's about. So here we have the original stem of the plant, and the roots, which will, as the cutting grows, it will send out roots, and these are the roots it sent out. But as the plant grows and produces sugars and such like, it will send those down the stem into the root system. And each of these tiny roots, not each, but many of the tiny roots will store that food and hence will swell up. So what we've got here is a swollen root. We call that a tuber. Each root, where it originally came away from the young plant, will form a tuber with an area around here where there is potential for growth, so-called meristematic tissue. So around here is where the plant will grow next year. It will send out shoots from here. On a potato, there are lots of areas on the whole of the potato, each of which can send a shoot out, so we call those eyes. Yeah. On a Dahlia, there are no eyes on the tuber, so the tuber itself, if we cut it here and planted it, it simply wouldn't become a plant. The growth area is around here, and if we're lucky, we will be able to see swellings, which we call eyes, and those are the parts of the plant where the new shoots will appear next year. So the idea today is to take as many individual tubers as we can, each with hopefully an eye or two, which will become a new plant next year. So we are at the moment into increasing our stock. So last year we started with one cutting that grew and gave us lots of nice flowers, and when we dug them up a couple of weeks ago, we find that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, possibly 8, 9, 10, something like 12 tubers, each of which will become a new plant next year. So Dahlias are so generous. You can increase your stock enormously by factors of 8, 9, 10, 12 each year. So we're going to have the first job here is to get rid of these scraggly root bits. And we can take any areas that we think are any tubers that we think are damaged and it's not going to be any use for propagating, then we can get rid of those at this stage. Often the necks are traumatized. In this case, not so bad. This just allows us to see what's going on, really. Take away those bits of roots, because we're going to take away each individual tuber now and store that for next year. Here we can see fairly well what's going on. Tuber, neck of the tuber, thinner part, and then it swells again here as it meets the stem. And that swelling part there is the area where we will see eyes, if there are any. In this case, I'm pretty sure they're there, we just can't visualize and say there is an eye, but these swellings around here are likely to be eyes. This area here, maybe there. That one's broken. That one's broken. That one's broken. So now the tricky bit, which is to remove each of the tubers with its eyes. We know that the eyes are going to be where the tuber meets the stem, and therefore if we can't actually see any, the idea is to take the tuber with a portion of stem. So here we are. Like that to be fairly neat so as not to allow disease to enter. That area will now dry out over the next 1 or 2 days, and the tuber will then be ready for going into storage for winter. One tuber. Another one with area around here where the eyes will be. Have a look at the tuber, and if there's a dark area, they're usually fairly obviously diseased. That looks a bit dark, doesn't it? But I'm fairly confident that this one's okay. Sometimes you do see brown areas which obviously look abnormal. Those tubers must be thrown away because they're rotting, and they'll spread to other tubers if we let them. These are coming away fairly well, fairly easily. Just clean them up. Unfortunately, that one's broken at the neck. Sure about this one, it's the neck part is buried rather deeply in there, so I think what I've done there, I've cut out the tuber at the neck or through the neck without really separating any part that could have an eye in, so I'm going to discard that. And we've now got a really tight knot of tubers in there, which is, I'm not sure I'm going to get any more out of this. One of the techniques people often use here is to use some sort of instrument like a saw or even a power saw or a very sharp large knife to cut through the tuber mass to allow visualization of what's going on. Probably the most common method here is to have a plant with maybe 12 or so tubers and to divide the tuber mass into 2, 3 or 4 areas, each of which have got a number of tubers attached, and then that is planted next year. So that's probably the commonest way of doing things. We're into increasing our stock maximally here, so I'm going to get as many individual plants out of each of these tuber masses as possible, so each one an individual tuber. Oh, I didn't want to do that. I've just pulled off the protective coating there, so I'm going to discard that. You can see the knot here. They look like they're growing together, but in fact they're not. Each one of these is going to be a separate tuber. They've simply grown in a knotted like manner. Let's go right through there. See what we've got. 2 tubers. Yep, one comes away. I'm not sure what's going on here. The lumpy bits here look like they could be eyes, but they're in the wrong part of the tuber really. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and take that as a potentially growing tuber. Again, they come together where they meet at the stem, so this is two tubers but actually joined together with tissue. That tissue has to be stem tissue. Again, I've traumatized it. Maybe, I don't know. Collect our label.